To Rants for Democracy, where we expose the lies, break down the chaos, and fight for the future. No fluff, no filter, just hard truths and real talk about the state of our democracy. My name is Nicole, and today we are going to look at Trump's brilliant new prison plan. The US is actually considering sending American prisoners, including its own citizens, to El Salvador, to be locked away in some of the world's most brutal prisons. And the craziest part? Some US officials are calling this an act of extraordinary friendship. Let's break this insanity down. Don't go anywhere. All right, let's start with the basics. El Salvador's president, Bukele, has made an offer to the US. Hey, why don't you send your criminals to my prison system? We'll lock them up for you. And US Senator Marco Rubio, instead of laughing him out of the room, actually called it, and I quote, an act of extraordinary friendship, and said, no country has ever made an offer like this. Okay, let's talk about what these prisons are actually like. We're talking about the most hardcore, authoritarian prison system in the world. Bukele built this massive mega prison called CCOT, designed to hold 40,000 inmates, and once you're inside, you basically disappear. No visits, no medical care, no rehabilitation, torture and abuse are rampant. International watchdogs have been sounding the alarm on these prisons for years. Reports of mass beatings, starvation, inmates being forced to sleep standing up because there's no space, and even disappearances. People just vanish into the system. And now the US is supposed to send its prisoners there? This is the part that really blows my mind. Bukele didn't just build a giant prison, he filled it up fast. Over the last 2 years, his government has arrested over 83,000 people, about 2% of El Salvador's entire population. That's the highest incarceration rate in the world. And guess what? Most of these people haven't even been charged with a crime. So how does this work? First, mass roundups. If you look suspicious, you're arrested. No due process. You're thrown in prison for months, sometimes years. 3, mass trials are coming because there are just too many prisoners to prosecute one by one. People are literally being locked up for existing. And now Bukele wants to expand this prison empire with American taxpayer money. That's batshit crazy. Now let's talk about Marco Rubio. This asshole just met with Bukele, the guy running the biggest police state in the Western Hemisphere. And instead of calling him out, he called him a friend. Instead of talking about human rights violations, he praised his prisons. Instead of condemning the mass incarceration of innocent people, he entertained the idea of sending Americans there. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. This is bad. A US official shouldn't be sitting down with a dictator and going, yeah, maybe we should send our prisoners to your hellhole. What happened to, I don't know, basic American values Americans like to talk about all the time? Okay, let's play this out. Let's say the US goes through with this crazy deal. What happens next? Americans could be sent to die in El Salvador prisons. Bukele profits off a US-funded prison expansion. The US sets a terrifying precedent, outsourcing justice to a literal dictator. Oh yeah, and legalities like, oh, I don't know, the US Constitution, you know, that thing that guarantees due process, the Eighth Amendment that prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. Sending Americans to one of the worst prison systems on earth would be an unprecedented human rights disaster. Jesus fucking Christ, you lunatics. Look, I get it. Crime is a serious issue. Nobody is saying we should just let criminals roam free. Well, unless you're Donald Trump. But this is not the solution. You cannot let US officials cut deals with dictators. You cannot send American citizens to a country where people are beaten, tortured, and then disappeared. And you absolutely cannot let your government normalize outsourcing justice to authoritarian regimes. You need to raise awareness. You need to demand accountability from asshole politicians like Marco Rubio. And you need to shut this down fast. All right, guys, I want to hear from you, especially if you're an American living in Osano land. What do you think about this insane plan? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. That's it for today's rant, but the fight doesn't stop here. Remember, democracy isn't a spectator sport, and silence is complicity. Stay informed, stay loud, and most importantly, stay in the fight. If you liked what you heard, share this, challenge that bullshit, and keep pushing for change. I'm Nicole, and this has been Rants for Democracy. Until next time, raise hell and demand better of politicians. You made it this far, you're clearly fired up, so don't let the algorithm bury this. Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next rant. And if you really want to shake things up, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep the pressure on, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.